Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dilly Show! Here's your host. He is the rock and roll enthusiast. This is Dilly! Hello everybody and welcome to the actual 22nd episode of the Dilly Show. I'm your host as always, I am Dilly. Why do I say actual 22nd episode? Because last week, on the 21st episode, I said welcome to the 22nd. So, my bad. This is the 22nd episode, and I'm happy you've all joined me. And today's episode is going to be something. Today, I'm going to be talking about... Well, actually, before I get into that, let me talk about what's happening other than the podcast today. I have a bit of news. There's a garbage can driving by. Or, not a garbage can, a garbage truck. Well, it's technically a garbage can. It's a big, big garbage can. Big news. I am working on more videos for my YouTube channel. I haven't posted videos properly for a while. I mean, I've been posting the Dilly Show and whatnot. But I'm working on some other content that should be coming out in the very foreseeable future. And that's exciting, right? Yeah, that's a good thing. Okay. So I hope you guys all stay tuned for that. Of course, my YouTube, if you're not already on it looking at my sexy face, it is youtube.com/thisisdilly. Go check that out. Actually, I want to make sure. Am I right about that? I don't want to be wrong about that. youtube.com/this is... I can't spell. This is Dilly. Is that it? It better be. And... it is! It's youtube.com/thisisdilly. So go over there right the fuck... My video started. My bad. So, more content's coming up there. I'm happy about that. I haven't posted properly in a while. As I said, gonna be doing some gaming stuff. Gonna be doing some other stuff. I'm not gonna tell you everything I'm doing, but I'm working on stuff, and stuff is coming. So stay tuned over there. The Dilly Show is gonna keep coming every single week, and some weeks I might not do it. But I'm going to try to do it every week. And as long as I can keep coming up with topics, there will be a Dilly Show coming your way. So, with all that said and done, make sure to follow me on Instagram, @thisisdilly. Let's get into the fucking show. Today, I am talking about Woodstock 99 and nu metal as a whole. Now, I'm going to get all into that. If you don't know what nu metal is, stay tuned because you're in for a fucking treat. In Woodstock 99, if you don't know what that is either, holy shit, you're in for a fucking treat. This is going to be a great episode of The Dilly Show, and I'm happy you all are here. Stay tuned, buckle up your seatbelts, and let's fucking go. Let's talk about nu metal. Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come. It is time for me, Dilly, to talk about Woodstock 99 and just looking back at nu metal. Because if you're unaware of nu metal, it was a very extremely popular music genre of the 2000s. It captured angst in a way that something like, let's say, grunge couldn't exactly do. Not that grunge didn't capture angst, it's just, in the early 2000s, there was a lot more angst, probably because grunge had died off. So, nu metal took the place on the charts right after grunge died, but what made it so special? What made it such a phenomenon? Well, that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So first off, we got to start back at the very beginning and the very definition of what nu metal even is. So by definition, nu metal is a subgenre of metal mixed with elements of alternate rock, grunge, or alternative rock, grunge, hip-hop, funk, etc. It's just metal, essentially, mixed with something else to make it sound different. A lot of this is very unique. It's really up to the musician, how they wanted to do it. A lot of them went with the whole funk route, but some people kind of just piggybacked off grunge and worked with that. It was a very complex genre, and it had a lot of potential. And it let out a lot of energy, and it released a lot of epic songs, epic albums, epic bands came out of this era. The earliest iterations of nu metal were bands like Primus back in like the 90s, like early 90s, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and of course Rage Against the Machine. Those people were more or less around in the 90s when nu metal wasn't exactly talked about, but they did essentially the same thing nu metal did. Rage Against the Machine was always a very funky but also a very heavy sound. Same with bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers, because they're very funky, very slap bassy, but they're also a rock band. So they were really early iterations, and Primus as well, of course, because Primus has always been very, very funky. That's just kind of the way Primus is. Les Claypool is a fucking genius. So later on in the 90s, when nu metal kind of began to form itself, a lot of other bands decided to hop on the bandwagon. So these bands are people like Deftones, who are very different. It's nu metal's about very different music, as you'll probably see, but it's different in a very good way most of the time. So bands like Deftones, Korn, of course, Limp Bizkit, which we will be talking about a lot in this podcast. There's Slipknot, and there's also bands like Sugar Ray, who kind of count, I guess. Sugar Ray went from being a very nu metal-y type band to being extremely pop and not that great. But once the 2000s came around, and like very late, like 90s, like I'd say 97 to 2001 was probably nu metal's biggest time period. It wasn't around very long, and it was a shooting star. Nu metal was a shooting star. It took off and went out just like that. But it left an impact that people will never be able to forget. And that's why I'm talking about it today. So when it became huge around the 2000s, bands like the bands I was just talking about were extremely popular. How popular, you may ask? Well, let me run down some of the most popular albums of the nu metal time period. So first off, I'm going to talk about Korn's album Issues. This album was number 1 on the Billboard 200. That's huge for like rock, metal, nu metal, anything like that. Most of the times, the top albums are like pop albums, very commercial stuff, but this is a Korn album at number 1. That's huge. That shows the movement that was going on around this time. Falling Away From Me exploded. That was a track on the album. Huge track. It gained so much notoriety for the band, and the album sold 573,000 copies in a week. That's a lot. That's a movement. That's saying something, that Korn can sell that many albums in that little time. Huge business for Korn. But it's not just Korn. Let's talk about Limp Bizkit again, because we have to talk about Limp Bizkit. You can't mention nu metal and not immediately think of Limp Bizkit. So Limp Bizkit's Chocolate Starfish and Hot Dog Flavored Water was another very, very huge album, and it broke records, ladies and gentlemen. It sold 1 million copies in a week. 7 days, it sold 1 million copies, and since then, it's been said that it sold over 8 million additional copies. It's went platinum 6 times. It was a huge album. That album alone solidified itself as like the anthem of that generation. Ginormous album. Another big album was Papa Roach's Infest, with songs like Last Resort, of course, becoming other anthems of that time period. All the teenagers who were very oppressed, very mad at everything, wanting to get their anger out by listening to songs like these. Infest exploded. Last Resort exploded, and it went platinum 3 times. Incredible. Disturbed as well with the Sickness album, Down With the Sickness. Everybody knows that song. Huge song. That album went platinum 4 times, which is pretty damn impressive. And of course, we can't talk about nu metal without talking about Linkin Park. They released Hybrid Theory around that time as well. As I think that was a 2000 or 2001 album. But it was the best-selling album of the 21st century. Such a huge album, lots of amazing songs, and it was also the best-selling album of 2001, as you could expect, because, you know, if it was the best-selling album of the 21st century, then of course it's going to be the best-selling album of that year. Other huge bands at the time were bands like Alien Ant Farm, Saliva, POD, Slipknot, and Stained. All huge albums that you really don't hear much about nowadays, maybe excluding Slipknot, because they're still relevant, always will be relevant. Gotta move over to my other notes. So with the huge popularity that nu metal was gaining, there was a huge event that happened in 1999 that you may not know about, but you sure will after this. And I strongly recommend doing research on this event. I strongly recommend looking it up on YouTube because all of the performances from this event are on YouTube. And of course, I'm talking about Woodstock 99. This event was ginormous, huge. And if you don't know what Woodstock is, I'll give you a basic summary. It's a bunch of bands, multiple days, bunch of stages, lots of music, and drug use. That's what Woodstock is. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of people gather in this area, like not social distancing at all, and they just enjoy music. Woodstock 99 had a predicted audience of 400,000 people, which is a fucking lot of people. Like, you ever see a show in a stadium that's sold out, you're not even going to get 100,000 people. Woodstock had 400,000. That's a lot of people in one place, and it was in New York, of course it was, and it took place between July 22nd and July 25th of 1999. And there's a lot of bands that performed. I have a list of their names right here, and I'm just gonna run down them real quick. It's a long fucking list, so hold on to your seats. Oleander, Buckcherry, ICP, Live, The Offspring, Korn, Bush, Everclear, Tragically Hip, Kid Rock, Rage Against the Machine, Metallica, Alanis Morissette, Dave Matthews, Our Lady Peace, Godsmack, Megadeth, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Willie Nelson, Creed, Everlast, and of course, your favorite, Limp Bizkit. So, what happened at Woodstock 99 that makes it such this huge, infamous event? Well, it was chaotic. Very, very chaotic. Nu metal at the time of Woodstock 99 was huge, obviously. Angst was at an all-time high in America, and people were angry. For one reason or another, people were angry, and they wanted to let out their anger. So of the 400,000 people here listening to Limp Bizkit, Rage Against the Machine, a bunch of these huge bands that are all about making fucking chaos and making waves, there was going to be some bad shit that happened. And bad shit happened. So, let's start off with the event itself. How did that go? Not really including the performance elements of it, just the event itself. What happened behind the scenes that made it such a clusterfuck? So, first off, it was extremely hot. It was 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which, very fucking hot. There was tons of fans, as I said, 400,000 people showed up. That's a lot of fucking people. The food and drink were extremely overpriced. The water was literally $4 a bottle, which, I mean, it's worse now, but for a huge event with 100,000 people, with things being extremely overpriced and things like burgers being close to $10 over the course of 3 days, that's a little psychotic, a little crazy. So that alone is going to stir up some shit. They did have a free water fountain, but the fans decided to break the water pipe leading to it so that other people could drink instead of waiting in the line to get their water. So that actually happened, and they ended up forming massive mud puddles, which isn't very good. You couldn't imagine that would be a very fun time. The toilets and showers they had there, because people, the 400,000 people that went to these shows were camping there. Most of them. Some of them maybe not. Most of them had tents, and they were just sleeping there, so they had to have showers and toilets, etc. They didn't work. After a while of, tons of people probably doing God knows what with them, they stopped working, they started overflowing. It was a very, very bad scene. And of course, it was absolute mayhem. As you'd expect. 400,000 angry people in one place. Shit went down. So, let's talk about the performances a little bit. First off, Every performance was pretty chaotic, with a few exceptions, obviously. Like, for example, Alanis Morissette went out and performed, and she preached to the people to be calm. Were they? No. You can't tame 400,000 people. So things were shit. We'll talk about Rage Against the Machine's performance. Rage Against the Machine's known for their big, boisterous, like, fuck you, like, they're known for that. They burned an American flag on stage. And I mean, people were going crazy. Mosh pits were, of course, huge. Gigantic mosh pits, like whirlpools of fucking people. Not fun unless, you know, it is for you, which in that case, whatever floats your boat. Let's talk about Limp Bizkit's performance. Now, there's two songs in specific that the performances of these two songs were kind of the downhill spiral that this show went on. Those songs were Break Stuff and Nookie. Now, first off, there were several sexual assaults and rapes at Woodstock during Fred Durst's performances, and also Korn's, because, you know, Korn. Which isn't good. There was gang rapes and whatnot, and that's not a fun thing, ever, in a million years. But here's Fred Durst up on the stage performing with Limp Bizkit, and he's encouraging people to be angry. There was a part of the show where he's like, okay guys, be careful, don't get hurt, if anybody falls over, pick them up. But when he started performing Break Stuff, he switched that entirely and told people to be angry. Pretty much asking for bad things to happen, and that's when bad things happen. That's when people were raped, that's when people were hurt, that's when bad shit went down. Fans literally destroyed stage parts. During Red Hot Chili Peppers' performance, one of the sound towers lit on fire. Like, there was lots of fires as well. Don't get me wrong about that. When Limp Bizkit was performing, they were tearing plywood off the stage and lighting fires with it. Huge fires. Uncontrolled. I don't know what they were thinking. They probably weren't, because all the drug use and, you know, angst. I don't know. It was a very, very hectic time in our lives. And, well, I didn't live through it. Well, maybe. No, I didn't. I wasn't there in 99. I don't know why I had to think about that. But it was hectic. It was not very good. So, lots of violence. Lots of things happened. So, what was the aftermath of Woodstock 99? Well, there were two known gang rapes, as I said. One during Limp Bizkit's performance, one during Korn's performance. Not good. Lots of lawsuits also came out of this because, of course, people were hurt. There were only 6 injuries, surprisingly, but this is where it gets kind of serious. There was 1 death at Woodstock 99. And there were a couple things that contributed to this death. The guy's name was David DeRosia. Rest in peace to him. From what I've read, he was a big lad. It was very hot. The water was overpriced, so the odds of getting water was slim. He was out there, and it was hot, and he overheated. He was exhausted. He was dehydrated. And he just kind of collapsed during one of the performances. And they had to get him, what do they call it when a helicopter comes? Airlifted. They had to get him airlifted to a hospital. Unfortunately, they couldn't save him. And it was a very tragic thing. And Woodstock 99 as a whole is looked back upon very, you know, it's very frowned upon looking back. Because it was hell. It was hell on earth. It was horrible. I'm sure some of the people there that lived it had a great time, because I'm sure some people did. A lot of people, probably not so much. The people that were thrown around and whipped onto the ground and, I don't know, all the fires and shit. Like, man, it's crazy. Part of me is like, if I could time travel, I'd totally go back to that day and go to the show. But then part of me is like, yeah, maybe not. Because, I don't know, as cool as it would be to see all of those amazing bands perform, like some of them, obviously not Limp Bizkit, but like Metallica and Megadeth were there. Like, I'd love to go back and see that, but holy shit, Woodstock 99 was something. It was something that will never be seen ever again. And the only way to witness it is to go back and watch the videos on YouTube, because they are all there. Even the Limp Bizkit performances, like, everything's there. And I highly recommend you watch it. So, ladies and gentlemen, in hindsight, what do I think about nu metal? I think there were good elements to it, and there were bad elements to it. A lot of good music came from that time period. A lot of bad music came from that time period. It's really a lot of goods and bads. It's really about how you weigh them. And I mean, overall, I'd say it was pretty bad. You know, Woodstock was definitely not a good thing. Legendary, like, but for like all the wrong reasons, you know, very iconic, but you know, not because it was like good. Like everybody, oh man, I could only imagine the mess. I could only imagine the mess that was left after Woodstock 99. All the garbage, all the poop, probably. Like, I'm sure that was bad. I wouldn't want to clean that. I'd ask for a lot of fucking money. But aside from Woodstock, nu metal, in hindsight, it was okay. It was fine. It defined a generation, and it was really the last time rock was prominent. Because, like, since nu metal, like, not much has happened with rock music. It went all punk for a bit. It went all emo for a bit. None of that was really good. So, that's really the last time rock was popular. And God only knows if it'll ever happen again. Because everything's so commercial nowadays. Like, it's just... rock's dead. It really is. There's a couple bands still going that still give me a bit of hope. Like Slipknot's still going. They're still good. Foo Fighters is still going. They're still good. There's a couple. But, man, compared to what it used to be, like, Limp Bizkit's album went platinum 6 times. That's huge. Will that ever happen again? Well, not necessarily Limp Bizkit, but will a rock album ever do that again? Probably not. Because they're not really coming out. They're not popular. There is no more rock. And it sucks because that's pretty much all I live on. Like, I don't listen to new music. So what I live on is rock from like the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. And I just have to listen to the same songs over and over again because there's nothing else. There is none of that nowadays. And I'm not listening to fucking Ed Sheeran, I'll tell you that. So, honestly, let me put it into perspective a little bit. If I wanted to put nu metal up against music nowadays, nu metal wins. So, maybe nu metal wasn't so bad, right? Like, I mean, there were bad parts. There were good parts. It's pros and cons. I'm not going to sit here all day and think, oh, well, this was good, but that was bad. This was good. I'm not going to do that. I'm not a skill. I don't weigh out things like that. Honestly, I think it was okay. It was a sign of the times. Because back then, like, American Pie was huge, for example. Like, society has changed a lot since back then. So, it'll never be like that again. And it was really a spectacle if you really think about it. And I get if people say they hated it and it was bad. I get it. But me personally, it holds a soft spot in my heart. I'm not going to lie. And I still do listen to nu metal music occasionally. Hell, I listen to Limp Bizkit occasionally. And that says something. So, all in all, my fucking computer keeps turning off. All in all, nu metal wasn't that bad. That's all I got to say about nu metal. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of The Dilly Show. If you did, remember to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe more, and click the bell icon for the love of God. If you're on YouTube, if you're on the podcast platforms, you know what to do. Like it up, share it with your friends, tell everybody, hey, Dilly just had an amazing episode about nu metal. And then if your friends ask you what nu metal is before pulling off a TikTok dance, kick them in the cunt. That's it. That's all you gotta do. Kick them in the cunt. Just give them a cunt punt. Send them on their way. Anyways, guys, I love you all very much. Go watch the fucking nu metal performances for the love of God. the Woodstock performances. Go watch the Woodstock performances. For the love of God, do yourselves a favor. Witness history. It's fun. It's fun looking back on it. At the time, it was hell. But looking back, it's fine. So go do it. It's a fun watch. And as always, stay true to yourself. Be a good person. Don't be bad. Don't do bad drugs, but do good drugs. That's all I can say. I've been here as always. I am Dilly. And I'll see y'all very soon.